Next up, a group of 24 U.S. states has filed a lawsuit against President Trump's new 10% global tariffs, claiming they are illegal. The Democratic-led states, including New York and California, argue the tariffs violate a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that invalidated most of Trump's previous tariffs. The states say the tariffs imposed under the Trade Act of 1974 are intended for short-term emergencies, not routine trade deficits. The states are asking the court to block the new tariffs and refund payments made under the previously applied Section 122 authority. White House spokesperson Kush Desai defended the tariff, saying Trump is using authority granted by Congress to address the nation's trade deficits. And now, joining me to discuss this further is Dr. Jayjit Bhattacharya, economist and policy expert joining us from New Delhi. The first thing that comes to my mind, sir, is essentially when will these importers in the U.S. and exporters alike around the globe essentially receive their refunds? Do you have any intel on that? I believe the number is in the billions.
Yeah, it's about 250 to $300 billion that we're talking about. And the interesting part to the question is that who really paid for those tariffs? At the end of the day, this was actually, a lot of it was actually paid by the US citizens, the US consumers. And a part of it was subsidized by the importers and the exporters and between them. And so fundamentally, yes, the money needs to go back to whoever paid for it, which in this particular case is the importer or the exporter, or a mix of both. And then the next question comes in as to whether that money will ever get refunded to the US citizens. And the answer to that clearly is no, that will not happen because there is no regulatory basis for doing that. So whoever gets the money, the US consumers still end up losing that amount from their pockets.
Are the funds even there? I was listening to a White House press conference the other day, and essentially Trump was boasting about the construction going on outside in the White House and that a $400 million ballroom was being created and set up with curtains made out of gold, supposedly, and Melania Trump was upset about it. Do you believe that the tariffs contributed to that ballroom? Is the money even there? I know the U.S. essentially has like a debt, like $1 trillion debt. So yeah, is the money there to be refunded at all, or how does all of this work?
So US is having two things going on in parallel, which is construction in the White House and destruction in the Middle East. Both require a large amount of dollars and large amount of funds. And that fund has to come from the taxpayers willy-nilly. What I mean by willy-nilly is that what the Trump administration is claiming is that the White House upgrade is being funded by private financiers. Well, private financiers will always have a quid pro quo, and that quid pro quo comes from the government, which eventually means it comes from the taxpayer. Also, all the missiles being fired at in Middle East also comes from the taxpayers' funds, and that fund has been routed through as tariffs through the importers and exporters. And as you rightly said, that money seems to have been spent. So the only way to refund is to borrow more money and then refund. And well, the US is pretty good at borrowing money, so they might just go ahead and do that.
So you are saying then, and you can confirm that essentially the taxpayers will pay for that construction in the White House and for this war, yes?
Well, the qualified answer is that willy-nilly, because, and I explained what willy-nilly would mean, is that the US administration is saying that that construction is being funded by private pockets. But as I said, in any such economy, when the private pockets fund such a construction, they are expecting some quid pro quo, something in return from the government, which puts them at an advantageous situation, which then helps them not just recover the money, but get more in return. Because funding that upgrade in the White House is an investment for these private pockets, and therefore there has to be a return. And if there is a return from the government, then that is eventually funded by the citizens of US.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. Much appreciated.